Quest to Succeed, Chapter 11. Jay was aware that in India agriculture depended on monsoon rains, but wells and canals had existed for many years. In the 1950s, tube wells started to be built to provide water for agricultural land. The governments, both central and state, had implemented the rural development policies. The Agriculture and Rural Development Department coordinated the policies. They investigated the food grain prices, sales and purchase of surplus commodities. The government furnished the minimum support price, MSP. It also implemented crop insurance, irrigation facilities, and life insurance for farmers. Still, there was enormous poverty in villages because of lack of job opportunities. He thought about the village life and questioned how could the life of villagers be improved and poverty eradicated. He discussed with some government officials, academics, and villagers, and felt that non-farm employment should be created in these communities. There should be basic industries like handicrafts, dairy products, and food processing industries. There was a need to improve transportation system and village infrastructure. The main objective of rural development was to encourage people to continue to live in villages rather than to move to live in cities which had their own problems of overcrowding and congestion. If the quality of life in these communes could be improved and villagers' economic welfare considered with housing improvement, transportation, and electricity supply. There was a need for skills development, setting up of banks for financial services. Citizens always needed health services. There had been a desire to provide these services to villagers. Young people, when they were students, thought that if they became medical professionals, they would serve their people in the villages. However, after gaining their qualifications, they either forget their commitment or their circumstances changed. They did not return to serve their people. In the later part of the 20th century, the government made it compulsory for young doctors to serve in villages for 3 years. It aimed to provide health and social services in rural areas. They were appointed to the village clinics, but there was no method to check whether a doctor was present at the clinic. Often the doctors lived in cities and towns. They did not attend their clinics in villages, but continued to receive salaries. They did their medical practice from their homes in cities and earned extra money. They also looked down upon the villagers and were not ready to help them or attend them sympathetically. The same principle applied to engineers and good and qualified teachers. The qualified engineers were not building roads and bridges in rural areas. They did not even turn up to supervise the work and preferred to live in cities and dealt only with paperwork. Qualified teachers were reluctant to teach in villages and argued that they did not have the same facilities as in cities, especially access to libraries. Often the villagers themselves decided that their children should stay away from villages. They should work and live in cities. They should make progress there to earn more money than they would be able to receive in villages. This, however, has led to stagnation in villages. Some people lacked service instinct and did not think for the welfare of others. For them, the individual uplift was more important than public and social advancement. Jay believed that educated people tend to be comparatively more efficient than uneducated folks. They could grasp the situation and make future plans, change their habits, and avoid hazardous paths. They could become more adaptable socially and productive economically. Those who work with professionals and educated personnel contribute to increase their efficiency and learn necessary skills. It did not happen in Indian villages because not many professionals lived in these areas. The villages were therefore stuck in traditions and superstitions as their ancestors had lived for hundreds of years. Jay argued that education could become a vehicle for modernization and could generate skilled workers, administrators, managers, technicians, and entrepreneurs. It could augment the horizon of adults and provide an opportunity to understand their environment. Education provided self-knowledge and self-awareness, which were the essential ingredients for social and economic uplift and professional mobility. The villagers had developed an inferiority complex. When they see a city person, they automatically think that they were better off, better qualified, and better knowledgeable. If the educated people interacted with villagers, communicated with them, lived in the same vicinity, they would understand each other better. They could also discuss ways and methods to improve life in villages. There was a need to improve health and social services, build roads, and provide transport facilities, better education, and sports facilities for the young. The villagers could also learn about the government policies for village uplift and how a strategy could benefit the villagers. If only the uneducated populace continued to live in villages, they would not progress or modernize or be aware of the environment around them. Jay maintained that as science and technology progressed, education would become a condition for national survival. The uneducated community was fast becoming an economic liability and unproductive. By being educated did not mean that everyone should be an engineer or have a degree. He contended that there was a need for practical and mass education. Any effort to concentrate on elitist education could be counterproductive and might not benefit everyone in society. A pompous education could produce an economic class with built-in limits on the enlargement of purchasing power of the masses. With a clear-cut hierarchy of economic strength, with a dangerous antagonism between diverse groups in the community. Despite Jay's argument for mass education, which was essential to change the society, he also maintained that higher education could not be ignored. Both quality and quantity were important for the progress of villages and the country. It could be identified as the workforce pluralism. All kinds of functions could be conducted in villages as well as in cities. It was therefore essential to produce educated people at all levels, with all kinds of qualifications, skills, and training. Jay sustained that a nation which was unable to develop its human resources would be unable to develop much else. In the villages, practical education could be imparted. It would develop an adequate reserve of talent which was needed to accelerate economic development and social progress. The central government of India and the state governments investigated the problems in villages, examined the causes of poverty and general life of residents there. Brick roads were laid in these localities. General conditions started to improve. There was less pollution in villages compared to cities and towns. Jay liked this improvement in the lives of the people. He also contended that it was not possible to provide jobs to everyone in small-scale cottage industries. He therefore felt that modern industries could be set up in villages. Capital investment, which came to cities, could be diverted to rural areas. With improved road transportation for carrying raw material and manufactured goods, it was possible to develop industries in these places and locations. The workers from nearby villages could travel to work in factories and return home in the evening. They could continue to live with their families and have a social life. It was, however, not happening. Industries were not being brought to villages. Village people continued to move to live in cities in order to escape poverty and find employment. Unemployment and lack of income was the cause of poverty, which led to idleness and superstitions. When villagers borrowed money, they had to pay high interest rates to sahukars, moneylenders. There were not many banks in villages. A mobile bank would have been of immense help, but there was the question of safety and security. The mobile van with money could be robbed. Poverty in India as a whole, but more particularly in villages, increased because of imperialism in the 18th and 19th centuries. Wealth was drained. The imperialists collected taxes of the landlords who extracted rents of the tenants. The money was taken out of the country. No money was spent on amenities for the villagers. It was, however, true that the villagers knew each other. They met one and all every day. They worked for the welfare of their families and the welfare of their neighbors. Social and economic equality was to be found where people were closer to one another. It was possible to leave the village, but many people found this move from villages to cities extremely hard to sustain. It created slums in big cities because of the shortages of housing. There was no provision by the state governments and the local authorities to provide houses to these new immigrants. They lived in self-made huts of bamboo and tarpaulin which could be blown away in rain and storms. There have been examples of lost lives and material in rainy season. In cities, the only work these villagers could find was in retail trade or as domestic servants. The women worked as house cleaners. The middle class in Indian cities think of themselves as new aristocrats. They keep servants and cleaners as a symbol of their status. They also hire tutors for their children to assist them with their homework. These tutors were, however, paid low wages. The city dwellers were socially and economically exploiting the villagers. Some shopkeepers, however, paid a reasonable salary to their workers, who were skilled and educated. They still did not secure a work or attain a salary suited to their qualifications. Quite a few people could not find permanent and regular jobs. They tend to assemble at specific places in various parts of the city. The residents who need their work done could find them from 8 a.m. onwards. These were skilled and unskilled manual workers, carpenters, bricklayers, plasterers, and painters. They carried their tools with them. Unskilled workers were hired to clean houses when required. Often they agree the level of payment in advance. Some workers continue to wait to be picked up for work. A few of them do not get any job and wait the whole day. Builders and sweet vendors also hire such temporary workers. They work as rickshaw pullers or carry shopping to residents' houses. They work as delivery people. Despite obstacles, not many people return to their villages. They hope for better conditions and stay in city slums, thinking that the conditions would improve. They attempt to understand the city people as their contact increases. The city residents also recognize their skills as they notice and observe them more regularly. The city schools were better equipped than the village schools. These new workers start to send their children to schools. It gives them aspiration that their children's lives would be better than theirs.